All right, hello everybody, and welcome to an episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy. Not just any episode, but this is take two with Marianne Guevara. And we had done an episode before, but the sound wasn't great, so we have come back because that conversation was actually really wonderful, and I'm anticipating we'll do even better on
Mm.
the second try, Marianne. So thank you so much for coming back. It's great to see you.
Of course, it's a great honor to be on Dear Dr. Fantasy, and I felt so bad that the first one's audio was bungled, so
No,
I'm
no.
looking forward to this take two.
If we didn't have technical difficulties, it wouldn't be YouTube, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's par for the course. And we do have to shout out Brian from BellTube for
Yeah.
heroically coming forward and attempting to help us with the sound on the previous attempt, but it just didn't work out. But I'm happy because I get to talk with you again, so that works out great. So I guess we'll get started here. And how about if I just start off with what are you reading right now?
Okay, so right now I'm reading classic. So I've been reading mainly fantasy in the beginning of the month, but I needed to kind of take a break, take a breather from it.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm in the middle of a classic. It's a French classic by Émile Zola
Oh,
called The Beast Within. So yeah,
oh,
I'm enjoying it very much, actually.
okay. Good,
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
it's a murder thriller with a lot of emphasis on the railway life, along with corruption in the French judicial system. So
Uh-huh.
there's like a lot of things going on, but I'm already halfway through it and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah,
Oh, wow. Corruption in the judicial system seems to be a perpetual theme.
yeah, yeah. It came out
Unfortunately.
in the late 19th century, and yeah,
Yeah.
still applicable anywhere.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. In many times and places.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Well, that's cool. And you said you read some more fantasy in the beginning of the month. So what were some of those?
Yes.
Anything good? Anything that really struck you that you really enjoyed?
Well, I read A Betrayal in Winter, so the second book in the Long Praise Quartet.
Oh,
And
good.
then, yeah, I enjoyed that very much. I liked it better than A Shadow in Summer.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
then I went on to read An Autumn War, which is the third one. That one I've kind of put a pause on because I was starting to feel a bit of a slump uh,
Okay.
uh, while reading it. So I just paused it and then I'm going to get back to it, I think, after my Zola. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then since our last discussion, I finished Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna
Oh,
Clarke.
okay.
And
Well,
yeah,
what do
loved
we
it.
think? Oh, you loved
Loved
it.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely for me. It's definitely a classic that is for me. Just not only her type of fantasy, the way she approaches magic, but
Yeah.
just the way she incorporates history as well. She does it so fluidly, just so well done. And it's a chunky book. It's like over 800 pages, my copy, but I kind of just went through it pretty, not super quick, but in a good time.
Oh,
So
I
yeah.
love hearing that. I read that many years ago, long before I even started my channel. And since then, I read Piranesi by her, but I have not gone back to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. But I remember adoring it, and it's a perfect, actually, opportunity for me to point out that you do, as you've already said, you read classics a lot for your own pleasure, and obviously you talk about that on your channel, and you read fantasy. So this is kind of that perfect combination in a way
Yeah.
because it is fantasy, it's modern, but it really does steep you in that classic vibe, doesn't it? Do you think that that Susanna Clark pulled it off pretty well, giving you the feeling of like, say, a Jane Austen era book? Because you've
Hmm.
read from the 19th century quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
what's your assessment of
it
her success in that respect?
I think she pulls it off. There are many, I think, fantasies that make use of like the Regency period, like Regency fantasy, or it's a fantasy that takes place in the 19th century,
Yeah.
but sometimes like it doesn't work out for me because I don't know, there might be some anachronism problems. Like it doesn't feel authentic to the time, and I know that's not a problem for some people, but for me, it can take me out of it. But with Susanna Clark, it just feels seamless. the way she just incorporates the fantasy into the time period. Characters feel like they are of that time period. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's perfect for me in that sense.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on the prose needing to match the period, even if it's a made up world. If it's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be an older world, it just jars me when I read dialogue that sounds like it could be like here in New Jersey and in 2025. It just that doesn't work for me. I feel very much that it breaks the immersion for me. So, and I think not every author can pull it off in a way.
Yeah.
It's part of it, probably, but also maybe other people disagree with me on that, where, some people don't mind reading or yeah, just don't mind reading more modern prose, more colloquial prose when it's supposed to be historical but for me anyway, that's just a deal breaker in so many ways. It just feels very I don't know, it just feels like do your homework and get that voice right and
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I being a snob when I want that in my historical fiction or what?
Well, if it is, I'm also a snob. So, and and honestly, I think it had to be that way for Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell because she makes a lot
Yeah,
of references to real life people and to real events. So if you're including that in your fantasy book, you should be a bit more, like, you're trying to be more authentic if
yeah.
you're going to include like real events and real people.
Now that said, at the same time, and now that I've just, put my foot in my mouth by saying I want it to be authentic, the truth is, I think when writers do conjure up the feeling of an older time or a different place, that's not a language that actually ever existed anywhere, right? When, for example, William Morris or Tolkien or someone like that uses archaic language and it feels medieval-y, right, to modern people. That's not how medieval people spoke, right? Nor even when a writer is skilled as, like, say, George R. R. Martin does it, he slips in a few archaic words and plays around a bit with the sentence structure, gives it an old-timey feel, but that's a modern imitation of an older way of speaking. It's not an older way of speaking, right?
Mm,
So when I say I want that older feeling, what I'm really asking for is for the modern writer to imitate an
mm.
older way or a different way of speaking, uh, rather than just going for the straightforward, colloquial, modern way of doing it, I guess, is what I'm asking for. But yeah.
I I think there's a difference between being 100% accurate
Right.
and then being authentic. So if like obviously you're not gonna be like a fantasy's not gonna be like one for one accurate, like copying the actual uh the language of the time, the manner of speaking, but
Yeah.
they can be authentic in a sense where it feels as if it's of that time period. Like they capture the spirit of it. So
Yes.
yeah, I do see
That's the
yeah, there's a bit
magic
of
trick.
difference.
That is the
Yeah.
magic trick, what you just described. Yeah. It's capturing the feel, the essence of that,
Mhm.
for at least for a modern ear. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I want that illusion, along with all the other illusions that the writer weaves in the course of creating the story. But yeah, I don't know why. I've always taken Ursula Le Guin's essay From Elfland to Poughkeepsie to heart ever since I was a youngster learning about fantasy. And in that essay, she makes this point about, older fantasy that is trying to at least feel like an older world than ours shouldn't use straightforward colloquial prose. That if you really want to immerse a reader, you need to make an effort to distinguish it from our modern world. But not everybody agrees, and I think that's probably more a minority position increasingly these days, I think.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to do a poll. Maybe I should do a poll on my channel or
that'd
something.
be a interesting poll for
Yeah, do
sure.
you prefer, fantasy that does a more, let's have people leave in the comments even. Why not? Do you prefer fantasy that gives you a sense of a world different from ours through the prose, maybe using some archaic language or whatnot? Or do you like it to be more accessible and modern and even if it's supposed to be a more medieval inspired type world? Yeah, so let us know in the comments. So cool. So, Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell, that is a really great one to have under your belt. And you've also read Piranesi, I think, and enjoyed
Yes,
that.
that
Yeah.
was my first one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, can we count Susanna Clark among your favorite writers? Is that,
Yes,
yeah?
I can. Yeah, I definitely consider her my favorite, one of my favorites. And yeah, I look forward to, whenever she puts out a new book.
Yeah.
So yeah.
She takes her time. And a part of that
Hmm.
is personal medical
Yeah.
stuff, I
Yeah,
think.
health reasons.
Yeah, health reasons. But also, I think she's just somebody who wants to write really great books that will stand the test of time, not just churn out books for the sake of making money, you know. So I respect that, you know. Another, a series, speaking of really talented writers, the series that we initially kind of bonded over was actually the Books of Babel, right? And I think that
Yes.
Josiah Bancroft is another writer who's probably not, it's not spoken of enough how skilled he is with his prose. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. First of all, I think he's not speaking enough in general. But
Yeah.
yeah, his prose uh is just fantastic. And yes, it is the Books of Babel, the series. I mentioned this in our previous discussion, like our first take, where
Yeah.
it's a series that really appealed to me as a classics reader because
Uh-huh.
it did give me that type of vibe as well. The Books of Babel. It had like a pseudo late 19th century type of world, especially outside of the tower itself. So
Yeah.
yeah, even in Josiah Bancroft's prose and like some of the mannerisms like of the characters like Tom, it did give off, like 19th century, which like appealed to me
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, we talked about this the last time a bit too, but I think it bears investigating. Your tastes seem to lean toward fantasy that is quirky, that is somehow maybe takes some historical, era for its inspiration.
Hmm.
But yeah, you tend toward the quirky and the weird, which is, I think, fantastic. I love that side of fantasy. I don't know if there's a word for it. Do you? I mean, these are,
I I don't know.
we'll have to figure out
I
a
do
word.
like it when authors just mix it up. As you mentioned, like they take inspiration, but it's not a one for one
Yeah.
of a culture. Like there's some fantasy where like this is obviously meant to be like Viking Scandinavia, or this is meant to be like Western Europe at this particular point. I really like fantasy worlds that kind of just mix it together. Do
Yeah.
something a bit more like outside the box.
Yeah. Are there others that you can think of off the top of your head that sort of fit this nebulous category that we're trying
Yeah,
to define?
it's such
I
a hard category to pin down, but
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. The ones who just are willing to do weird things,
mhm.
and use a bit of our own world, but and I think I mentioned this last time too, but the whole magical realism genre, if we can call it a genre, seems like something that would probably appeal to you since you do appreciate really great prose with some bit of our world mixed with a bit of weirdness in there. So that might be a place for you to investigate as well, you know.
Well, for a series that kind of, I would say, kind of falls in that category,
Yeah.
uh, it would definitely be, at least for me, the Mirror Visitor Quartet, which was
Aha.
actually a French series. It was originally French and it got translated into a bunch of languages. And it's the series that actually got me into reading the Books of Babel, actually, because
Aha.
someone mentioned in a video saying that, hey, if you liked this, then if you like Mirror Visitor Quartet, you're gonna like the Books of Babel. And
Okay.
yeah, I think it's a pretty good comparison as well. Uh, I have heard people say describe as being a bit more unique, a bit weird, the way
Huh.
the sort of the world is envisioned as well. So yeah, I would recommend that series, and I don't think it gets enough buzz. It's another series I kind of try to push out more.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's described as YA, but after reading the entire series,
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't think I would agree with it, especially because that third and fourth book really deal with like heavy, like very personal, like philosophical, metaphysical themes, like just things I did not that I don't typically see in like the average like YA series. I don't know.
Yeah.
Once again, it's so nebulous. All of these, I can't pick out like a particular word to categorize it all. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like a lot of times YAs just happens because of the age of the protagonist. It
Hmm.
doesn't even
Yeah.
like his Dark Materials, the Golden Compass, and those that's supposed to be YA, but like you said, it's a
Yeah.
really serious metaphysical and exploration going on in that trilogy that is going to go over the heads of most kids, I would think. Yeah, I don't know. Have you read his Dark Materials by Philip
I
Pullman?
have not. But
Okay.
people have also said that that series, The Mere Visitor Quartet, also reminded them of
I was
the
just gonna recommend it if
yeah, of
you
that.
read it yet. Yeah, that seems
Yeah, of
like
his Dark
something
Materials.
that might be a hit for you, actually, now that I'm thinking of it. Yeah, there you go. I don't know
Yeah.
if it was already on your TBR or not, but yeah, cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm trying to think of others as well. Now, I think some that I haven't read. Oh, well, one that for sure I know you read and I haven't read yet is the Gormenghast
oh yes.
trilogy.
Yeah.
That also, would you say in some ways? I mean, that's actually sort of gothic-y, I guess, right?
Yes. I've heard it described as like gothic fantasy. I've heard it described as oh, what's the term? I saw it online. It was fantasy of manners is what
Okay.
people categorized it. So
Yeah.
it's a fantasy that isn't, you know, it's not a spoiler, but like there's no magic, there's no any like hard
Uh-huh.
magic or any magic at all.
Yeah.
But when you read it, like it does feel like a fantasy. Once
Uh-huh.
again, it's like down to the vibes, even though like there isn't anything you can point directly to that you could say, oh, like this quantifies it as a fantasy. Like there's no magic, there's no like magical creatures or anything like that, but it is a staple within the fantasy genre, and it's been so influential to many authors. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you read it, I think you'll understand why people, they do consider it fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Hmm.
But let's get a sense of your reading journey in a little bit more of a chronological way, which leads us to our standard question here on DDF, which is going on the premise, Marianne, that you are what you read. What have been some of the formative, important reads of your reading journey in your life? What are some of the books that, if you were to explain yourself through books, what would be some of the books that you would tell people about?
Okay, so I've always been a heavy reader ever since I was young. You know, I'm very grateful to go to a school where, they encouraged reading. They had the AR program and everything. So I was always in and out of the library, picking up books, reading. And when I was a kid, I read the Aragon, the Inheritance Cycle, at least like the first half. I would read the Harry Potter series there.
Okay.
I read like Artemis Fowl series, the series of unfortunate events. And yeah, I was just such a heavy reader back then. And then once I graduated grade school, well, sorry, middle school, I moved to the Philippines, which was like it was a huge thing for me. Like it was a bit of culture shock because I
Sure.
moved like right after middle school. So
That's
it was
kind of a
yeah,
hard age to move anywhere, really.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was trying to accustom myself uh, to studying there. And so my reading kind of dropped off
Uh-huh.
for a bit. Yeah. However, my mom, as a gift, gave me Jane Eyre. And
Ah,
it was Jane Eyre that got me into reading classics and what kickstarted my love of reading back.
okay.
So,
Wow, what
yeah.
a wonderful book to have that,
Hmm.
to have that, to do that for you. Jane Eyre is a great book. Absolutely. So is Charlotte your favorite of the Brontes then?
Uh, I've read one of each
Okay.
of the Bronte sisters. So I've read Jane Eyre by Charlotte, Ten of Whitefield Hall by Anne, and then Wuthering
Wuthering
Heights,
Heights.
obviously, yeah, by Emily Bronte.
Yeah.
Um, as of right now, like the order is like I like Jane Eyre, then it's Tennant, and then it's Wuthering. But the
Oh,
thing
Wuthering
is,
is third. Oh,
it's
okay.
third actually. Yeah, it's third. Evie, I'm sorry, but uh, I haven't read everything by like Charlotte yet, so I
Uh-huh.
can't even say that. Like, who knows? Maybe Jane Eyre won't be my favorite. So I've
I
only
mean, she
actually
may
read,
have written something that will surpass it for you, even.
yeah,
But I love Wuthering Heights. I just love the atmosphere of it. I'm not.
yeah.
You didn't say you hated it or anything,
No,
right?
no, no, no. I actually read it. I tried reading it when I was still in middle school. I was too young to appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
And then it was after when I was older, it was like in college, I revisited. And yeah, I had that greater sense of appreciation for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
To
do
me,
like
it's
the
the quirkier of the it's the quirkiest of the three, really, I
yeah.
think. And just I mean, it's almost I mean, in its atmosphere and its strangeness, it verges a bit toward the Gothic, I think, a little
Mm.
bit there, in the portrayal of Heathcliff and everything. Yeah, but yeah, it's hard to beat Jane Eyre. Yeah, it's a great book. So, well, that's great. So that's what got you back into reading
Mm.
and
Mhm.
with classics, and then you returned to fantasy at some point as well.
I came back to fantasy. Oh, maybe like it's actually been a few years.
Uh-huh.
Maybe like two or I would say I'm very recent. In fact, I I
Huh.
don't know. Sometimes I feel bad when I see people post their top 10 favorite fantasy series, and I haven't read a lot of fantasy series like,
Yeah.
but I am grateful that the ones I have read I absolutely love. I guess I'm just picky with the
Yeah.
series I start and finish.
I
But yeah, I
wonder.
do want to read more.
If you were to, if I were to recommend more like epic fantasy to you, the first thing that comes to my mind is Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings. Have you tried that yet?
I have the entire Farseer trilogy.
Okay, so you have the
So
Farseer
yeah,
trilogy. Okay,
that's
yeah.
on the TBR. So
Okay, it's on your TBR. Good,
I'll
good,
get
good, good.
hopefully, I'll get to it soon.
Yeah, I think that, and for me, and there may be difference of opinion from other Realm of the Elderlings fans. By the way, it is like top three fantasy series of all time for me, Realm of the Elderlings. So I have obviously a very high opinion of the series as a whole. And I need to go back and reread Farseer, but Farseer didn't immediately like wow me. I liked it a lot, and I left it there for years. I just like okay, I got a taste for Robin Hobb's writing there, and I just put it down. And for whatever reason, I didn't continue. And then finally, shortly after starting my channel, I read the Lives of Traders trilogy. And that's where I was like, whoa, okay, now I get it. And continue to read. And then two of the other trilogies even surpassed that for me. And those would be the Tawny Man trilogy and then the last trilogy in the series, Fitz and the Fool. So those were just, I mean, brilliantly written. And I have a feeling if any of the big epic fantasy typewriters are a hit for you, it's gonna be Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings, I think. Let's see.
I've heard nothing but good things about Robin Hobb and that series. So yeah,
Yeah.
I look
Okay.
forward to it for sure.
Cool. I will
Yeah,
be
when it comes to
watching.
fantasy, I'm pretty newish.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I'll be watching your Realm of the Elderlings journey if that is something that you pursue. I'll be very curious to see what you make of Realm of the Elderlings. So yeah, cool. And are there any other fantasy series that are on your radar that you're thinking you're going to want to read in the future, and they may even be talking about on your channel?
Uh, for me, I'm not sure. I'm such a reader.
Okay.
It's it's really up in the air sometimes when it comes to my reads.
So you don't have
So
a
we'll just have to
rigid,
see.
you don't
I
have
try
a
to make
rigid.
plans, but
Okay, yeah. You don't keep a rigid TBR that you follow
no, no,
slavishly. No. That's all good then. Yeah, no,
no,
I
no.
think
But
most
yeah, yeah,
go ahead.
I try to go with the flow,
Uh-huh.
because this is I read for the love of it and the joy of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I try to. I don't want to kind of force myself because once I start feeling pressure, I don't know, I get very antsy and I will fall into a slump.
Oh yeah, we can
And yeah,
have that.
I don't know when. Yeah.
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 It's good to know yourself as a
Yeah.
reader and avoid that kind
Hmm.
of thing for sure. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, but when I come across a fantasy series I love, it's just, it's amazing. It feels like a rush. I only recently got into I'd say I only recently got into fantasy
Uh-huh.
when it came with the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft
That was the
because it
battle.
was,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, like, I think if you know me, or if people know me on BookTube, they might know me as that one girl that won't stop talking about the Books of Babel. Uh, because I read it, and oh God, I was just so absorbed by it. I felt like a rush when I read it. Like, and the
What do
thing
you
is, like, after I finished it, I I wanted to recapture that rush. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
find series where I'm feeling the exact same way.
Yeah.
Cause
I think a
yeah,
lot of us are doing that. For me, it was Lord of the Rings when I was a 12-year
yeah.
old, and I'm always after that. And I've found it a few times, like with Malazan, for example. But it's or with Realm of the Elderlings. But it's a rare thing to have that exact, excitement reproduce. I think we're all
Hmm.
looking for that, aren't we? When we're
Yeah.
seeking after all
It's
these new
almost like a
series.
like you're addicted. And you just want that same high again. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was for me. That was me with the Books of Babel, and I have to thank that series for kind of getting me into the community as well.
Uh-huh.
Because uh, after I read it, I had no one to talk to about it with
Yeah.
anyone. I read it by myself, and so I would just go on YouTube and look it up and see, who was talking about it. And that's where I saw Alan from the
Yeah.
Library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
And then, I saw his videos, then I started attending his, live streams. And through the Library of Alexandria, that's where I kind of got to know more about the booktube community,
Uh-huh.
especially the fantasy side of the booktube community. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. So Alan was your entry into fantasy
Yeah.
book.
Yes, because like Alan, I guess we're just into more niche fantasy
Yeah,
series.
I mean the way Alan likes to read weird things that no one else is reading.
Yeah.
So I hope he watches this. So, but yeah, I mean he is certainly one of the biggest proponents that I knew, and he's the reason I read the Books of Babel actually. And I had a discussion series with him and a couple other people, and the couple other people bailed out because they didn't like book four very much.
Oh my gosh, if I was around at that time, if only I was around at that time, you'd be
Yeah.
hearing words from me.
Well, it's funny because they're not alone. There are a lot of people who have not really appreciated the fourth book, but I think it's brilliant. I think it's
Yeah.
actually consistent with Bancroft's vision for that
Hmm.
series,
Yeah.
which if you look back to the first book, he's doing what he
He's,
promised us in the
yeah.
first book, in the fourth book. And the fact that it doesn't necessarily give us all that neat, tidy, happy, warm and fuzzy vibes at the end, to me, I feel like that was signaled right from the very get-go, that you should not have expected that kind of ending from this kind of a writer, I think. Do you agree?
Oh, definitely. I mean, when I read it, when I got to the ending, I was actually surprised people were kind of reacting the way they were.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I thought that Bancroft was setting it up, very well. Uh, the themes that he introduced, and then, I saw them pay off and pay out towards the end.
Yeah.
And then even the character arcs, I felt that the character arcs were, um, everyone ended up where where they ought to be. So yeah, honestly, I'm of two minds about this. I understand why people like are having a hard time with the ending. I get it. It does not end conventionally. It does not
Right.
end the way people would want. Very tight, very neat, very neat. I get it, but I think it's more important to me that the ending adheres to the themes. It stays true to the characters, and you
Yeah.
know, are the actions of the characters, do they make sense? Do they make sense to who they are? Rather than what I would personally want. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was fine. I was pretty happy with the ending to the Fall of Babel.
Oh, I thought it was brilliant,
So yeah.
actually. I thought it was brilliant. And in terms of the social critique, Bancroft was very consistent with that throughout the series, and what he did with that in the fourth book to me made complete sense. I felt like that was signaled from the first book, you know. So that shouldn't have been a big surprise to anyone either, I
No.
feel. But
I think with each book, the social commentary was the more that Tom was journeying through the tower and being immersed into the world of the tower, you know,
yeah.
the more he witnessed a lot of these social issues. I don't know, it just became more and more apparent with each book. So, yeah, it made sense.
Yeah, and he begins, I don't think it's a spoiler, so he begins much more naive than he ends up. And so he wouldn't have
Hmm.
been as observant an individual in the beginning books either. And as he goes through his experiences, obviously he's going to have much more open eyes, you know. And so those it makes sense that those themes might become even more prominent then, right? But but anyway, I think it's just a brilliant, weird, quirky, beautifully written. I mean, there are just very few authors I would there's a short list of authors I would put in the same circle of talent when it comes to the prose as Bancroft. He's just really that good. I wonder if how you're finding Long Price Quartet. That's another series that Alan loves dearly. And I loved it too, and I felt it got better with each book. But it sounds like you went through a bit of a stall there with the third one. I'd be curious
Mm.
to see what you think going forward. But for me, the fourth book was huge payoff, and it's a weird series in that it's so short, really, relatively speaking, and yet, Daniel Abraham succeeds in giving a sense of an entire lifespan in these four relatively short books. I thought that was really well done in that sense.
I mean, yes, and I think this is a case where this is a excellent series for
Uh-huh.
sure. I think from the first, for me, because I think I know my taste pretty well, I know from the first book whether or not I get a good sense if the series is going to be a potential favorite of mine. I
Okay.
tend to know that by first book. Like ideally, first book should kind of completely win me over for it to kind of qualify as a favorite series.
Yeah.
So I don't think LPQ is going to be a favorite series of mine. However, that's just purely subjective because
Uh,
uh it's an excellent series. And I agree with Alan, it's incredibly underrated. Like
uh-huh.
I think less people talk about LPQ than they do the Books of Babel. And it's great for its character work. The complexity of the relationships and the depth of the characters. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's great when you recognize the merit of a series,
Sure.
but then you also acknowledge that maybe personally it's just not hitting for you.
Uh-huh.
At least that's for me. Like it's not hitting the absolute highs that I have. I don't
Gotcha.
know. I'm very I don't know what's with me. Yeah, I am weird, I guess, when it comes to favorite series.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just either it hits or not, you know.
So it sounds like the first book is really important for you a lot of the
Mm-mm.
time. So if I were to pose a really mean question and say, is it more important to have a really great first book that grabs you and then you read the rest of the series and the others, the following books are maybe not as good as the first book? Or would you rather have a ho hum experience with the first book, but then by the end of it, be blown away by the last book? And which is more important, to have a great first book or a great last book in a series?
I don't
That's a
know.
mean
The
question.
first book, it is mean. It is mean, Philip. I think I don't know because the first book is the hook,
Yeah,
and I'm pretty ruthless when it comes to series. If first book doesn't hook,
yeah,
then I'm probably not going to continue on. But um I don't know, for an ending, as long as I feel that it's similar to the Books of Babel, where it makes sense, it stays true to the themes and its characters,
Yeah.
so it should be fine for me. Honestly, I noticed another pattern when it comes to my favorite series.
Okay.
Usually a quartet, and the fourth book tends to be very divisive. So the
Okay.
Books of Babel, Fall of Babel, I mentioned the Mirror Visitor Quartet. That last book is very divisive. Like the series is going from the first three books were like 4 stars, like above 4 stars, and then it dropped to like 3.7
Ooh,
for the fourth book.
that's
It was
unusual. Wow.
it was very divisive, and I completely understand why
Huh.
people are like torn about it. I think another series I really enjoyed was I mean, even the Gormenghast trilogy. I don't know. I don't want to spoil this for you, but I
Yeah.
don't know if you know, but yeah, that third book, Titus Alone. Uh, Mervyn Peake was going through health issues at the time.
Uh-huh.
Parkinson's. He was showing signs of dementia during the decade he
Oh.
was writing it. So yeah, you can see that there's a drop in the quality. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's not on the same par as the first two, naturally, because he was going through like a health issue. And there, yeah, people are kind of on Titus alone. But me and even Evie, when we were talking about it, when we were discussing it, we see the vision. We see what Peak was aiming for,
Yeah.
how he planned on continuing the series. So yeah, that's another ending that is also divisive. So yeah, I something I noticed is that I like series where the last book is kind of contentious
Huh.
amongst its fans. So
Okay. Okay. Let's see. That pattern
yeah.
holds up. Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, I don't know.
I asked the question
I don't, yeah.
partly. I was just gonna say I asked it partly because I just read a book of the first book in a quartet that I've been told by a lot of people is like a real favorite and just a great series that gets a lot of praise here on BookTube, and that's the Dandelion Dynasty. I
Ah,
just
yeah.
read Grace of Kings. I just finished it before we started recording, actually. And it was good, but it was not nearly what I thought it would be. It was just kind of like, is this it's really kind of a setup book, maybe? Or it was very, in terms of its tone and the character work, particularly, it felt like almost like a history book or a folk tale kind of thing. And I was like, this is not,
I've heard people say that. That's like
yeah,
when people criticize it, that's the one thing I hear. It reads like a textbook. It reads like a history book is what I hear people
yeah, yeah. And it
describe
did
it.
for me. And then I'm thinking, wow, well, if the whole series is like this, I don't see it being a favorite series for me.
Mm.
But I've heard so much praise for it that I am willing to say, all right, this has got to be a setup book. It's got to be a setup book. If I hadn't heard so much praise from other people and I just picked it up randomly and I read it, I'd be like, I probably wouldn't continue in the series. I just have too many other things to read. But since I've heard so many great things, I'm gonna read book two and anticipate that that setup is gonna have some payoff, right? And then by the time I finish maybe the tetralogy, it'll be a favorite of all time. Who knows, that. But I'm willing to take that, I guess, just because of all these other people who said this is such a great series. I'm trusting them, and maybe I won't hold it against anybody personally. If I get to the end of it and I'm still like, eh. But, I guess I've been pondering that question myself because I think these days the received wisdom is definitely you need to wow your readers right from the get-go. And obviously, ideally, you're gonna write a great first book, a great second book, a great third book, a great fourth book, right? That would be the ideal, right? But how many authors can keep that level,
Mm,
throughout a series? There's, first books are often setup books. Middle books are often, middle book syndrome, right? And then that third
yeah.
book, a lot of series, I think a lot of it's very common to have a trilogy where the first book wows a lot of people, but by that third book, it's just like, it's sticking the landing is not always easy. So I was thinking about that question myself. I didn't. entirely mean to be mean to you. Asking it. No. I feel like another
Yeah,
author that might work for you, and I've only read one book by him, is Simon Jimenez. I
yeah,
read.
I've read Spear Cuts Through Water.
Okay, what did you think of that? Because that's the one I have not read, and I want to read it this year. What did you think of The Spear Cuts Through Water?
I definitely enjoyed it, especially
Okay.
for the fact that it it, it it's different. It reads different.
Okay.
I love I picked it up because I heard how unconventional it was.
Yeah.
It made use of like the first, second, and third voices all at the same time, and
Huh.
even just the world building itself. I don't know. It's Asian inspired. Like obviously you can tell, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the way that Simon Jimenez just he approaches it. Like there's this beauty and grandeur to the world. It does
Wow.
feel very epic. You know,
Cool.
it's yeah. And it doesn't have to do a large series to convey how grand this world is. Like it just takes that one book.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a great accomplishment, I would say. I
Yeah.
read The Vanished Birds, and I liked it a good deal, actually, enough that I'm actually excited to read The Spirit Cuts Through Water, and we'll see how it goes. But it was very uneven, I guess, and probably deliberately so. The Vanished Birds was. There's it's opening chapter is very different from what follows, so it could be a bit jarring, I think, for some readers to think to have sort of one set of expectations built up and then suddenly it becomes something else, I guess, is
Hmm.
one way of explaining that. And then when I later heard that he had originally written that first bit separately and then later wrote the rest, I thought, oh, that makes a lot of sense, you know. And it was his debut as well. But
Yeah.
the fact that he does go for it and it's very experimental is something that I did enjoy. So let's see
Yeah.
what
Spirit
happens.
Cuts the Water is experimental for sure. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually looking forward to what you think of it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I
And
think for the
Evie
most
too.
part, yeah, people, I think definitely. I
Yeah.
think that for the most part, people enjoy it. Or if they don't enjoy it necessarily, they appreciate it. They definitely appreciate the craft that went into this book,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you cannot talk about the spear cuts through water in our community and not mention Evie.
of
So yeah.
course. She's the reason why there's no more hardcovers anymore.
Is that right? Is that
Yeah,
actually true? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I'm
Wow.
pretty sure she bought like all of it, the
I have
entire
one of them.
stock.
Yeah. I have one of them. Yeah. Thank you, Evie. Yeah. But yeah, wow. So that's cool. And then I don't know, I'm trying to think of other recommendations. Do you have any recommendations for me actually as well?
Oh
Wow.
my gosh. I mean, you're reading them already. The Gorman Gas trilogy and then the
That's
Spear
on my
Cuts Through
TBR.
Water.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. But and I've read Susanna Clark. I've got
Hmm.
Jimenez there. Who else fits? Who are we leaving out here in our catalog
I'm such a novice.
of the
I'm an honest novice when it comes to fantasy. So when it comes
odd.
to recommendations,
Oh,
I'm
you know who I
so
haven't read yet, and I think maybe one for both of us to check out is China Mieville. I don't know if
oh
you've
yeah.
have you read China Mieville?
I've heard of China Medieval. Like
Okay,
Perdido Street Station, I
yeah,
hear will like be for me because it's described as weird.
yeah,
So
yeah. Okay. Well, I have not read that yet either, but I know lots of
hmm.
people have and think I really ought to read that. It sounds like maybe one that would work for you. Let's see. But yeah.
Oh, we both also read the library trilogy.
Yes. Okay. Let's
Druids,
talk
yeah.
about Mark Lawrence. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you excited for the release of the book that held her heart?
I am. I am. It ended very precariously for a lot of people. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
hear that it's a tearjerker. Yeah.
Ah, gosh. I'm gonna put it off for a bit. I don't wanna ah I'll put it
You
off
gotta
for a
rip
bit.
off that Band-Aid, you know.
No, I'll prolong the pain.
Are you one of those people that takes off a band like this? A little bit at a
Ah, a band-aid is fine. A book though, like how many pages of suffering am I gonna go through? That's the question.
I'm sure it's beautiful too.
I'm
But
sure it is, but I'm sure it's gonna hurt too. So
yeah. What else of Mark Lawrence's have you read besides the first two books in the library trilogy?
that's it.
Okay.
That's the book that broke the world was my first Mark Lawrence because once again uh I've heard it described as weird and I heard it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bit unconventional because it does like genre blend. That's another thing I really like.
For sure.
So I had a feeling it was going to be something more up my alley.
Yeah.
So that's why I picked up the book that broke the world.
Yeah. Or the book that
Yeah.
wouldn't burn is the first one.
Oh,
Yeah.
the book that wouldn't burn, and then yeah, the book that broke the
Yeah.
world.
I actually
So
did the
yeah.
same thing the other day. I confused the two. So, but yeah. No, I mean that is one of the most different trilogies I think that has anyone has come up with in recent times. And as you said, it's impossible to categorize, which
Hmm.
Mark Lawrence does do in his previous trilogies, but not to quite this degree. And it also, like Senlin Ascends or the Books of Babel, I feel like the library trilogy can function on a highly symbolic level as well. It's got this so not a spoiler to say, the books of Babel have a central symbol in the tower, right? It is, I won't say exactly what it represents, but anybody who's read it knows that that tower is a very important central part of the plot, but it also functions on a symbolic level in a way that really deepens the story. Same thing with the library trilogy. It's called the library trilogy, so it's not a spoiler to say there's a library in the library trilogy. It's an infinite library, and it
Hmm.
also is important for the plot, but it also functions very symbolically, I feel. Do you agree with that? That's a big similarity between those two series?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Hmm. And Mark Lawrence tackles a lot of, especially a lot of social themes
big time.
in this trilogy.
Yeah,
Big, big, big time.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and that library is very, very important. And it's so strange too. It's a library that consistently weirded me out with just he would introduce different elements to it. And it's a library. I mean, it feels familiar because it's a library, but there's also just odd things to it as well that kind of set it apart. So, yeah. He also mentioned I think it was I forgot where, but he did mention that the library was partly inspired by uh, another library, which was in Arm of the Sphinx, the second book of the Books of Babel.
yeah.
I remember he mentioned that, so I was
There's a
like,
connection
oh,
right there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Huh.
So
I
it's
like.
nice, and it's nice to, uh, a library is such a great setting.
Of course. I mean, book lovers, it's hard to go wrong with a library, right? Yeah. Even if it's a little creepy at times.
Hmm.
Maybe that's even better. I don't know. So, yeah, cool. So, do you think you'll move on and read some other Mark Lawrence books beyond the library
Uh,
trilogy, or it
well,
depends on?
we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I just go for I do read summaries to see whether or not it's going to be something for
Yeah.
me. So yeah.
Yeah. If I've only
Very
read
often, yeah.
I've only read three of his other trilogies, and of the three, I think probably Book of the Ancestor would be the one that would be more likely to work for you. But yeah, yeah, you'll figure it out, I'm sure. So cool. And so you said you're not a planner, so you don't really know too far in advance what you're going to be reading.
I have an idea, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Like there will be like maybe I'm finishing one book and then I plan to read this other book, but then after I finish the one I'm currently reading, I don't know, this other one is just like nagging. It's calling to me a bit. So I was like, I
Ah,
have to follow that mood. I have to do it. That's what I did for Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I plan on reading something else, but I was just itching at that moment. Maybe I should read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and it worked. So yeah,
okay. So you are truly a mood reader then. Yes, I see.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I wish I were more of one at times. I sort of somewhere in the middle. I do tend to have plans, and a lot of them consist of buddy reads and stuff. So often that's what I'm doing, or I'm reading for SPFBO. So my reading schedule is sort of laid out for me that way,
Mm.
I guess. But once in a while, you want to just break free and do something different, right?
If I'm gonna be rigid, I'm definitely rigid with like buddy reads. Like obviously,
Uh-huh.
I will definitely stick to it for sure. You know, I have a commitment with that. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty kind of go with the flow. But then when it comes to my reading, I only stick to like a few genres, like the ones I'm comfortable within. So classics, fantasy,
Yeah.
horror. Rare, I don't. I should journey out a bit more,
Uh-huh.
but
That's a
yeah,
lot though, right there. So
yeah.
I mean, you probably would enjoy, based on your taste for the weird. I bet you there's some science fiction that you would enjoy too, because there are a lot of
Oh yeah,
I.
sci-fi. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also read some
I-
sci-fi. I mainly read the older ones, like the classic ones.
yeah. That makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Huh.
It,
Have
it,
you?
it's yeah, it's more comfortable, I guess, because they tend to be a bit shorter, and I don't know. They're standalones as well. I feel like most sci-fi nowadays seems to be like series. Like at least the popular ones tend to be series now. And back in the day, it was like standalones. So,
True.
and I really like the themes that they explored, especially in classic sci-fi. It was le people say this a lot, like it that maybe it's like less on the characters and more about like the themes that are being
The
explored,
ideas. Yeah, yeah.
the ideas.
Have you read Dan Simmons' Hyperion yet?
No, that's one. Yeah, that's the one I haven't read. I mainly go once again for like those standalones.
Yeah.
But
That
yeah.
might work. I mean, that's part of a, I guess, a series, but probably it's been so long since I read it myself. I don't think I even read the entire series myself, the Hyperion Canto, as they call it these days. But I definitely read Hyperion, and I feel like based on my memory of it, it might be something that would work for you, it being kind of an odd one, and it seems to be well praised as well by a lot of people. So that might be one to check out even. But cool. Well, I want people to have a sense of anything else that you might be doing on your channel. Are you going to be part of any other like buddy reads, or what are you? I know you're not planning out too far ahead or anything like that, but what can we expect in the immediate future over there on Marianne Guevara's channel?
Mm, uh, well, nothing planned. I don't have any buddy reads planned. The last buddy read I had was with Evie for the Gorman Gas trilogy.
Okay, you read that
Right
with Evie.
now,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want to discuss Gorman Gas, me and Evie, I'm sure
Oh,
maybe Evie
sure.
wants to have a discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
But so far, I don't know. I'm kind of just taking it easy. Don't have anything major planned. Like when it comes to my channel, I just do videos on topics that just get me fired up and get me excited. So
Uh,
if I've recently read a book that I love, you know, I have that urge to talk about it. So I do a video to kind of, I don't know, expel that feeling out of my body. Like
Yeah,
I don't know. It's yeah. It's just I need I mean that's why I made this channel. I just have a lot of thoughts that weren't just kind of just staying inside me. Like there was no one to talk to about it. So
yeah.
with this channel I can just espouse my thoughts in a video and just share it with everyone. And if anyone is interested, they could reply and we can have a conversation. But yeah, uh,
Well, that's
my
lovely.
channel is very much passionately run that way.
I think that's great. I think that's wonderful to have that. I was going to propose, though, and there's something for you to think about. You're not on the hook or anything, but if you do read the book that held her heart and you want to be part of a group conversation, I have a group if you want to join us for that. So we'll see. I know you may put it off, but if you do decide
Me,
to go ahead and break your
I say I put it off, but I know my curiosity might be too much, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
go ahead and I suck it up and I read it anyway.
I think you would have a lot to add to that conversation too. So yeah, but I have two or maybe three people who might be joining us. But if you wanted to jump in that one, and you are more than welcome for sure.
Yeah, that sounds exciting, and I'm so excited to see how this ends.
Me too. It's actually I would have to say at this point, my most anticipated upcoming release. I am excited by Abercrombie's The Devils as well, but this is the third book in a trilogy that I have loved. So, I'm curious to see what Abercrombie comes up with. I'm a big fan of the first Law books, but this I feel like is this very special trilogy, Mark Lawrence's
Yeah.
library trilogy, and I've heard some people whose opinions I really align with and respect have said this is incredible, this third book. So I'm really excited for this release in April. It's gonna
April 8th, I think.
is it?
April
I didn't
8th
even know the
is,
day.
I
So
think so. I think it's April 8th. I think I saw it somewhere on Mark Lawrence's like Instagram. He said 8th.
okay,
So
I'm gonna have to read my
I think so.
SPFBO books really fast
Yeah.
so I can
Get it
clear
done
the
in
deck.
like a week.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't do that fast, but yeah. Uh, well, awesome. Well, and well, we'll see if that actually happens. But you are more than welcome to join us for that, and or any other series or read along you might want to do. It'd be great to chat with you again, Marianne.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, and in the meantime, everybody, I encourage you to go check out Marianne's channel. There will be a link to it in the description. And that is it from us for now. Until next time.